Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. I am Facundo Carballo and today I will explain you how to use a JWT token and why we need a JWT token in a server. Okay, so first of all, we have to see this diagram where I try to explain you why it's important use a JWT token. Okay, imagine this situation where a user wants to insert a task in a to-do list app, for example. A user wants to insert a task in the name of other user, like you can see. User A wants to insert a task like the user B. If the server doesn't have any authentication protocol, like JWT, the server will trust in the information that the client it sends to the server, and then the server will insert the task with any other checking. So the JWT token, it's here. We need the JWT or some authorization protocol or method to know which client, which user is inserting or is getting or is interacting with us as a server. So we want to know and guarantee that the user is that they are saying to be. So for example, in this case, when a server implements a JWT, the user, in this case the user A, imagine that situation where the user wants to insert a task in the name of the user B, the server will say to this client, wait, show me that you are the user B. Show me your credentials, your email or password. And the user A, in this case, will have to demonstrate that he is the user B, but in real is a user A. So basically, this is why we need a JWT token. A JWT token will authenticate our users in our server to access and get data from our database. Now we will see an example using this Golang server that is connecting to this database, MySQL database, which has two tables, a user table and a task table. The user table just have these elements, an ID to identify each user, a name, an email, and password. And the task have these elements, an ID to identify each task, a name of the task, a description of the task, and an owner. This owner is a foreign key targeting to the table of users. So each user can have multiple tasks, but a task can be owned by just one user. So in this case, we just have two users, these two, and well, multiple tasks that I tried before. We will see now an example of using this server without a JWT token, and then an example using this server with a JWT token, and you will notice the difference between that. So first we have to run our server. In this case, it's a Golang server. We want to run with go run maintain go. Well, here for 3 endpoints, one to login, one for insert a new user, and the other for insert and get tasks. Okay, we will focus on this endpoint today. First, I will try to show you how to insert a task in a name of other user, like we can see here. So to do that, this server actually is implementing a JWT token, and it's trying to verify that the user or the client that sends the request has a JWT token in their header. So to make sure that the server will not recognize a JWT and will not try to stop any user that don't have a JWT token, I will just comment these lines so you can see how a server without a JWT token can be vulnerable to many attacks. So here we just have to indicate that the owner, because this is an insert task statement that will execute on the database of MySQL database, will insert into task the name, description, and owner, and the values will be these three values. So the name will be the first question mark, the description will be the second question mark, and the ID or the owner, we just have to pass some ID that ID will be related to the owner of the task, of this new task. So here, to make sure that we will have always a task owner. I just have to put here task.owner, that this task.owner, this ID, will get from the body of the request that we send to this endpoint. So like we are modifying the server, we just have to run again. And now I will try to insert a task in the name of any user, because I don't, this endpoint don't verify that any JWT or any authentication method. To do that, I just have to open Postman, and I will make a post request to this endpoint, the localhost 3690. That is where our server is running. I will create a task, a very simple task from Postman, for example. Description of the task, description of the task. And the owner will be the owner number 1, for example, because I can put here any value, any integer. So I will send this request, and the server will send me another message that's telling me that the post request was successful. So if I check the table of task, I will see that the task was inserted correctly, and the owner is the owner number 1, but I can just go back here and put the owner is 2, and the task from the Postman, the name, I will change to that, and I will send again this post request, and the server again will respond me with a successful message, and we will go back here, and there is the new task from Postman 2 with the owner of name 2. So we can see here that there is no authentication method, so anyone can insert data to anyone, and that's not what we want. So now we will see an example using a JWT token. Going back here, I just have to remove this, and now the server will check first if we have a JWT token. If we run our server again and we try to insert another task to any user, for example, a user number 3, but doesn't exist this user, but we just can't to insert. So I will try to insert this new task, and the server will respond me with this message: authorization header missing. So the server is checking before to insert any data to the database if we have in our authorization header a JWT token. So how we can get our JWT token? How can I get that JWT token? Well, if we go back here, we can see this situation where the user A wants to insert a task in the name of the user B. So the server tells to the client, okay, show me that you are the user B. So we, as users, as clients of this server, we have to demonstrate to the server that we are the clients or the users that we really are. To do that, we just have to log in using this login endpoint. This login endpoint will use the credentials. In this case will be email and password, because that is our database. Email and passwords to identify each user. Well, this endpoint will read all the body of the request and transform that body, that array of bytes, in a user structure using this function, and then we'll get the real information about this user in our database. So going back here, when the user A sends the credential to the server first will have to go to the database and get the correct credentials of that user to verify that the password, in this case, match. So that's what we are doing here. We are getting the user from email, so the real user, using this function. So we pass the user email that we get from the body request, and well, we just have to go to the database using this query, and we will get the ID, the name, the email, and password from the user, from the table user, where the email is equal to the email that we get from the body of the request. Okay, so now we just have to iterate for every row that we get from the query, but in the in the most common case will be just one row. So I just have to scan the rows using this function and copy each element. In this case will be the ID, the name of, and the email and password from the user that we get from the database, and copy that data to these pointers, the pointer of the ID of the user, the pointer name of the user, the pointing email of the user, and the pointing password of the user. This user structure. If all goes well, I just have to return the pointer of the user. If any goes wrong, well, just have to return a nil pointer. So going back to the login function, when we get the real user from the database, we just have to check if the user is different from nil, because if it's equal to nil, it's because the user doesn't exist in our database. So we just have to inform to the client that, and then we will just have to check if the passwords match each other. So the real password that we get from the database have to be equal to the password that the user sends to us in this body request. If they match, well, the credentials are good, and we just have to generate the JWT token. But if doesn't match, okay, we just have to inform to the client that the password doesn't match, and just that. If the password match, we have to generate the JWT token using this function. And here, the server have a secret key to cipher and decrypt, to encrypt and decrypt the token. In this case, I use the environment variables to store my secret key, my very difficult secret key that I will show with you. It's my name. But this is important because if anyone have access to this secret key, can decrypt the JWT token and get all the information that we encrypt in this JWT. Okay, so once we get our secret key, then we just have to create the token, in this case using this function, and here passing the signing method. In this case will be HS256, and here we just have to create the claims that we will get in the future when the user sends this JWT token. Well, we will get the JWT token and decrypt, and we will get these claims. So we just have to create the claims with a map claims function because we want to use the key value. Here I just pass the ID as a key, and the value of this key will be the ID that we get from this parameter. That is the real user ID. So using this, we will be able in the future, using the JWT token, to decrypt the JWT token and get the real ID of the user. It's just that. And then when we have all the claims created, we just have to encrypt or sign our token using this function, using also the secret key that we get here. So if is any error, well, we just have to print on the console and return a nil pointer. And if all goes well, we just have to return a pointer to this token string. We will just generate the JWT token for this user, and then, well, we just have to create the response data structure, like you can see, and send the token string content of this pointer. So we will send to the client that we get here, because here we are getting a pointer to this token. So here we just have to dereference the pointer to get the real value of the token string, and then we just have to send to the client this REST data as a JSON. So now that you already know how works this login endpoint, we will to identify to this server using our email and password, and we will get a JWT token. So I just have to make a post request to this endpoint, this login endpoint, passing as the body of the request the email and password. I will log in as the user number 2 that have these credentials, facundito@gmail.com as the email, and the password 12345. If I make this post request, I will get the correct JWT token of the user. But imagine the case that we make some mistake typing the password. I send to the server this post request. Well, the server responds me with this password doesn't match. Password don't match, not match. So because the real password is different from the password that the user sends to the server. And the same it's for the email. If we pass here a different email that doesn't exist in our database, the server will know that and will send to the client user email not found. That's here. Once we get the real JWT token, we can use it to make some post request or get request to insert task as the user number 2 and get task as the user number 2. We will see this right now. I will insert a task using this JWT token. This JWT token I just have to put here in our authorization like a beer token, and here I just paste the token, and then we'll go back to the body, and here we just type the name of the task and the description. We don't need any other value because the ID of the task is auto increment by default in our database, and the owner ID the server will get the owner ID of this task using the JWT token. So we just have to pass the name and description of this new task. Description. Well, we will send this information to the new task. So I sent this information, and okay, error creating the task in the database, cannot add or update a child row, foreign key constraint. Okay, the error is here because when we modify the server to make the things wrong, passing the owner in the body, I forget to modify this. Here it's the ID that we get here from the JWT token and not the task.owner, because we here we don't pass the task.owner in the body, so it's never getting that ID. So well, I just have to refresh the server, and then now yes, I will this new task will be inserted correctly from Postman with JWT. And now yes, we can see the new task inserted as the user number 2, task from Postman with JWT, description 12345, and the owner's name is the owner 2. We don't have the option to insert a task being other user in the name of other user. So because to insert a task or something, we just have to pass the JWT token. If we send a post request without a JWT token, the server will respond with authorization header missing, like we see before. And if we modify this JWT token using another, like so, the server will respond us with an error, JWT not valid. And now we will see how to make a GET request to this endpoint, also to the endpoint of task, using obviously the JWT token correctly. If we make this request, we will get all the task related to the owner number 2. And we get that because this function that handle the task endpoint, and when notice that is a get method, we'll call to this function that it's get task, and get task get the JWT from the request, then get the ID of the JWT, and then make this query to the database, getting the ID, name, description, owner from task, where the owner is the ID that we get from the JWT token. So then the function just scan all the tasks from this query and insert it to this variable. And finally, the function write to the write response object that we get here, to the response writer, sorry, the JSON encoded of this task variable that gets all the tasks from this user. So that's all for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and if that's true, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, because I will try to make videos like this every week. And also I invite you that you hit the like button, because that helps me a lot to grow up on YouTube. So now I will say goodbye to you, and well, I will see you in the next video. Let me drink a mate to share with you.